Hi, everyone, and welcome to Authors and Artists Festival Rewilding. My name is Lise McLaughlin, and I'm your host from NatureCulture. Our sponsors include the New England Grassroots Environment Fund, Mary King, Kathy Cremens, and Rescue Poetics. The festival is brought to you with help from Nature Imaginarium and Human Error Publishing and SCORE.org. Thank you to our sponsors, our colleagues and presenters, and to you for being here. This is Writing the Land Poets, Session 1. Each poet in this session has 8 minutes. Our first reader is Susan Glass. Welcome, Susan.
I will begin today with a poem from my chapbook, The Wild Language of Deer, which was published by Slate Roof Press 1 year ago. And this poem is called Grandmother Oak. You claimed the back hill before fences, patios, paths. So we made you an altar there, railroad tie steps guiding our feet, your children and rosemary sprouting around you. Tumbled sharp leaves and for bare feet, prickly acorns, and always a summer toad napping beneath a log. I thought your branches were saying, brapa, 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 until I learned there were acorn woodpeckers roosting, and you, their granary, granary, granary tree. One January night, you gathered all of California's wind into your roaring hair. I climbed your hill and wrapped my arms around your girth as far as they would reach. My hands did not touch. I rested my cheek on your rough skirt. Your windy voice swelled, and your still body anchored me. And now I'll read a poem that is not in the book. It's a newer one. It's called Shells Teach Hands. One is a rigid boat you rock and balance on your thumbs. Another, a blown glass cup whose soft animal left home too soon. One is a coiled spiral, a rolled scroll perhaps, and inside, letters between sisters. One is a lizard, one a nap bleached in sun. One slept cradled in kelp, read the imprint of her hair. One shells a bridge between sandbar and tide pool, between nation and nation. Listen, gravel, deep whale pelvis, porpoise click, shells where iodine perfume. The whole healed ones were in Florida once. Grandma and I strolled, gathered them in apron pockets, carried them a while, thanked them, returned them to the Gulf. She loved the shark's teeth, I the turkey wings. The Pacific brings refugees, wind-banged urchins, tide-pummeled scallops, capsized abalone glass. In Nebraska, old oceans and volcanoes kept fossil diaries, mussels, a mastodon's tooth, and at Ash Falls, a baby rhino's jaw still nursing. I'm going to go back to the book now, if I might, and read an autumn walk poem called Red Shafted Flicker. Red Shafted Flicker. We startle each other on a path in mid-stanza where I'm scuffing through sycamore leaves. I'm thinking, ankle, acorn. The flicker has probably been hammering for ants or beetles. Pum, it calls, its voice sharp as an egg tooth. It flaps, glides, flashes unabashed, its red underwings and tail. How large it is. He or she, can I know in October? Her spanned wings carry us into stanza 2, where she lands on a quivering scrub oak tightrope and again calls, Pum! Wicca, wicca, wicca in April means one male yelling at his neighbor. But Pum! A message for me. Don't disturb my anting. your feet are loud. Here we are in stanza 3. She's quiet. I'm thinking she won't climb the live oak's vertical slope as her cousins, the hairy and acorn woodpeckers, will, leaning against their tails while they drill and stash seeds. She works her magic in leafy cavities where larvae live. By stanza 4, when she disappears, not for the night, I think, but from me, I ask myself what to do with the space she's left, her absent, scuffling claws. This is another newer poem called October. October. Grasp the low-hanging trapeze called sunlight. Hold tight. Pray for lift. Here come clacking leaves. Here come deer antlers, some broken. The stags are frenzied. The does, like the season, appeased and leaving. You, landlock, release upper air, bed down in mulch-fragrant basements, and become a potato. I am extremely fond of deer, and I have 2 deer poems to share. This one is called June Fawns. Dina fetched me in her Jeep on the same evening when my divorce papers arrived, explained as we drove to the refuge how these fawns were orphaned. A city hiker found the pair alone and thought abandoned, carried them to the thicket, from the thicket, so that the doe, returning hours later after feeding, found only the flattened grass where they had lain. I crouched under manzanita in wood sorrel and fern, a full milk bottle in each hand, and Dina opened the adjoining pens. Warm noses first, snuffling my hair, my neck, my ears. I leaned my cheek on the bumps where their antlers would grow, smelled their bony haunches. Blind lips found nipples. The bottles inhaled, exhaled, said hunger, said need, said yes, grew light as helium. Even the gnats ceased their hover buzz. Ferns crinkled under hooves as the fawns withdrew. And my final poem for today is again from The Wild Language of Deer, and it is the title poem called The Wild Language of Deer. The deer appears in my family room, and I throw down every myth I've ever read. Great stags in the Danish king's forest, northern stars flickering in their antlers. Artemis buck avenged, Irish fairies milking hinds. This doe's bones are harder than the maple piano. Her hooves puncture the oak floor, cut jagged braille stanzas to the kitchen's rim. Her knees dispose of chairs, her shoulders thrust musky-scented into the breakfast nook, and the head, mounted over the fireplace, is like any face emerging from a dream that bewilders, that asks, "What is this place?" Her body is a dark space under basement stairs where we flatten together on our bellies. I pull wet sentences from the clay of her flanks. They smell like fermented potatoes. They are the mute story I'm telling of her furious, severed head. They are poems that will never domesticate, that welcome this wild language back into my home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan Glass. That was lovely reading from her book, The Wild Language of Deer. Our next reader is Hollee Freeman.
All right, thank you. Great to be here listening to these poems. I am going to start with a poem called I Be, and it's the Alice Walker writes about the conditional verb be a lot, and that be can talk about can describe a past experience, a present experience, or a future experience. And so my poem is titled I Be. I be butterflies and bees, sunflowers and trees, I be sticks and stones, ashes and bones. Sure, I be tired. I be wondering how many salty tears can my body make. I be remembering when my grandmother said, "Let me go into the sky." And I did. I be as iridescent as a raven and as translucent as a Luna moth. I be cardinals and dogwoods and the great Bamileke ancestors that worked on land that wasn't their own. I be the heavy, sweet soil of Cameroon and the gentle flow of the Pamunkey River. I be bundles of sticks gathered around a fire. I be waves of grief and joy at the same time. I be protecting my peace on Dancer's voyage through other worlds. I be aware of days filled with cirrus clouds, nimbus clouds too. I be aware. I be discerning. I be full of love. I be. My next poem is going to be Queen Bee for You. I'm a beekeeper, and so I write a lot about bees, honeybees, but also about nature in general. This poem is called Queen Bee for You. I was born a queen. There was a longing, a yearning from the land that precipitated my existence. I did not exist before, at least not in this form. I could have been one of the thousands of hardworking lithe ladies or slothful barrel-bellied drones, but the earth called forth a queen. In my last life, I was queen of the Nile, Brahmi perhaps. Did I adjust my crown so that it had a dope tilt to it? To the side, of course. Did I have a large retinue as I glided effortlessly through the sweet-smelling gardens? Did I sashay among the geometric cells, leaving new life in my wake? Did I give an approving nod while I watched my children work in harmony with flowers, spreading their life force so that others may live? Did I revel in the scent of pollen, the feel of a cooling breeze, and the sound of buzzing wings, connecting my vibrations to all that is in nature? So why does a queen care at all? Where is my focus? Where does my energy go? Creation beckons me, for without me, there is no you, no us, queen things. Creation beckons me for you. I wrote a lot of poems about grief. I'll read a couple and then I'll read one that I wrote for Writing for the Land. My grandmother and my dad both got really, really ill at the same exact time 2 years ago, and I wrote a bunch of poems just about experiencing grief. So this is called Grief Like Love. Grief like love overtakes my senses like hot flashes that happen no matter where I am, who I'm with, or what I'm doing. Grief like love washes over me, envelops me, holds me for seconds, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. It is here in this sacred space that I can choose to fight or surrender. I choose surrender, always surrender. Surrender to the sobbing, to memories, to the present comfort and knowing. During these moments of closeness with my truest self, I divinely transmute grief into love. A love in which I can fully feel all the pain, all the sorrow, all the joy. I feel love, I feel grief, I am grief, I am love, grief as love overtakes me. I'm gonna read this one, it's called Bodies, and it's just, I don't know, the human condition in hospitals is a whole thing. So I wrote this called Bodies. Hooked up to tubes, hooked up to walls, beeping, moving, dripping. Bodies edging down unusually bright hallways, an array of colors line the walls, silent statues at attention, tears rolling down flushed faces, eyes downcast in honor. Elsewhere, bodies gingerly inching toward windows with careful steps in heavy yellow treaded socks. Face and hands pressed to window to feel the warmth of the sun, to see the wind blowing on leaves. Bodies moving, bodies laying, bodies healing, hoping the mind catches up. I'm gonna read Islands of Decency. This is kind of crazy. These are like all the things that I've heard. Some are crazy, some are not so crazy, just like all the random stuff that I hear. So it's kind of a quick, cute poem. Islands of Decency. And Miles Horton wrote this whole thing about islands of decency, how people need to do what's right even if they're on an island by themselves, which I think is apropos to what we're experiencing in the world. Islands of decency. In the realm of Jesus, fish were fed, UFOs are landing. We're not the only life forms. Sleep is elusive. Jesus was a Pisces. Billionaires would rather go to space than solve world hunger. The oppressed are oppressing. Islands of decency, where? This next poem I'll read is my last poem. I have more, but I will stop. Cactus Rising. This is from my time in Cayman Brock with Lise and the other land poets that experienced that beautiful place. This is called Cactus Rising. They call me beautiful, majestic, prickly, peculiar. Arms rising to the sky in communion with the Divine Mother herself. Content in a garden of kin. My calling is peace, reverence, calm. Communion with rocks, red birch trees, adorning me in love and hope. Beauty of the Brock. I connect deep inside the earth, moving in ways ever so slight, not forgetting my purpose. Who am I? Why am I here? Known to myself, known to the living, known to the ancients. So that is Cactus Rising from the Brock.
Thank you for that wonderful variety of land poems.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Our next reader is Denise Low.
I am writing about the Cheyenne Bottoms, which are a wetlands with Quivira wetlands in the middle of Kansas, which is a huge flyway. It's a stop on the flyway. So it's very crucial to the survival of whooping cranes and many other waterfowl. But there's a whole history that goes into it, and I'll read you some poems about that. The first one is Buffalo Wallows at Cheyenne Bottoms. Ruts of Conestoga wagons, crisscross grassy slopes, scars imprinted in clay, like buffalo wallow bowls scattered in blue stem. Travelers along the trail leave no single footprint, but instead wheels leave marks no one can erase, like any sound continues into sky like water rings. Grass has this memory. The beasts rolled in dusty sedges so often ground sank and crusted. Their winter shag hides sloughed off, but pits remained. Their snorts circle distant horizons as spring rains fill muddy wallows alive with frog songs. Earth remembers every one of us. This poem is called Journal Entry, Sandhill Cranes. When the storm arrived, nightfall, it tore trees apart. Somewhere they hunkered, Sandhill cranes. The next morning, nothing feels the same. By the lake, their staggered beige plumage makes a second shoreline. One apparition reveals itself as humped, a chunk with black stilt legs piercing waters. Another poses, its beak a spear and yellow eyes as mean as a hunting tiger's. When the ghosts rise, their white arrow necks stretch forward. The cranes are just amazing, and a few times I've seen the whooping cranes, as the Cheyenne Bottoms that wetlands is a stopover for them. Sky of cranes. I don't believe in white cyclones spinning mosaic dervish flutter against the sky. The sun's flame turns white. In slow spin, several dozen giants, one clump slower, coast an updraft. The gyre lifts into pageantry of heaven. I pass them by the Arkansas River near Great Bend and turn north through Cheyenne Bottoms, following the marsh angels, whooping cranes. One other time I saw a similar deliberate flock, crane specters and mist, remainders of ancient throngs. My car crosses the Santa Fe Trail in a sandy river valley. overhead, the flyway migration. Again, map sky, years of my lifetime. And again this November, late push to Texas. How their thin legs straightened behind wings en plant. Geese are just amazing in their flocks and branchings as they migrate. And this poem is called Faith. The ensemble of geese overhead straightens, strains, forthright, neck straight, stretched into the sun. They are black motes showing no doubts, paddling wind, outracing a sleety bank of night. And I'll close with one set in the Flint Hills, which is east of this area, and it's where I grew up. And there's just so much history and so much life in the unplowed virgin prairie here. Jackrabbit. The Flint Hills stretch to infinity, an abstract word meeting you here on this hill. The motion in grass might be wind, but no, the jagged path shows where a bony jackrabbit flees. They fear people. This autumn afternoon disappears as sun ruches the west, or maybe it continues, it just in another dimension. Listen, your breath ripples the blue stem grass. Your eyes see beyond the creek, leading sky to darkness. Past and future merge at the horizon and last forever. You traveled this kingdom with Coronado before he left Quivira, before he wrote about the land. So vast I did not find the limit anywhere I went. Some days, thunderheads explode in the skies with lightning bolts so loud the ground shakes. Rainbows follow. Millions of stars speckle the night. All people who once lived here surround us, and the red-tailed hawks keep watch. Thank you.
Our next reader is Angela Trudell Vasquez.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to start with the poems that come from Writing the Land, Windblown 2. The Land Speaks. The land speaks to me, calls from outside the car window. We pass valleys, hills, what glaciers made 10,000 years ago when people moved to the edges of newborn waters, where ice chunks broke off, became kettle lakes. The sign says basins where ice lay, depressions frozen in time, melt, mark the earth, become altered landscapes. Birth novel plants where fish feed and frogs sing and mushrooms grow round white saucer hats that tip over in spring from the weight of their halo christening. Blue indigo buntings fly by the stars, chart moonlight migrations. While we humans sleep, our feathered friends leap, follow the call to move. Swans and geese congregate. See 16 pelicans preen, their necks dip to drink, undulate herding fish in the water. They dance in rhythm, circle the prey, fin species. Their beaks lead fish to a net made out of ripples, bubbles of gas and air, lethal concentric circles culling names unknown. Before telescopes, night watchers, moonshine parades, dinosaur return. That's a high bun, The Land Speaks, followed by a haiku. This is called history. Settlers plowed prairies, occupied others' homes, sacred places torn asunder for cash fields, farms, bank pockets, and fancy watches. No song, no thanks, no story. When farmers named old waters for themselves, the people displaced. Does the marsh remember the sounds sung out centuries ago by those who fished on its first banks, fed from its lakes, swam and bathed on its shores? Now people gather, seed prairies, count trumpet swans, unfold land stories. That's history. And this is the third poem that I wrote for the Patrick Marsh. The Land Speaks. Harvested fields sing with crane footsteps. The threshers, the turkeys, fan plumage, scratch, itch the ground. Frog songs ripple from the pond, say, I'm here, how about you? Slog through mud, stickers, branches, and burrs tag our clothes. We find a spot, relieve tired souls. Here, no bird pays rent. They eat, swim, harvest the soil with tiny beaks. Robins, crows, red-winged blackbirds, seagulls peck, plow the ground, water, air. They fly, fish, catch bugs mid-flight. There are footprints underwater here, where a creature stood at dusk or dawn. The earth keeps the mold, little hands and feet. Some creatures who bent their necks to drink. A turkey vulture makes an appearance. A hawk rests on an oak branch, hunts barely visible against the tree trunk, camouflage its best friend. When glaciers peeled back their edges, little huts sprouted, circled emerging kettle lakes, pools of ice in retreat. That's The Land Speaks 5. And I'm going to read one of my favorite water poems. This is for the Crawfish River. And we have pyramids in outside of Madison and Lake Mills. It's called Astalon Park. And this is called Water Memory Mosaic. Body of water, boundary waters lace the landscape. People moved up and down the mouse, found themselves among the reeds, the fish, wild rice. Mound dweller remains. Here, see rocks stacked, how they stood on boulder dams, speared our ancestors laying eggs, spiraling back to their birthplace. Celebrants smoke flesh at night, sing songs of praise, prayers answered, sustenance for the next season, fins forward the way home, history in bones. Our cuerpos remember, I tell her, liquid memory, DNA swims in our blood when we drink. She, beautiful child, blinks, believes me, stops running the sink. Precious, I say, humans over 70% agua, water is life. All the wet that ever was, here now for all. And we walk, enter the lake, splash and race, this summer day when school is out. How vast are we in our veins? This is another one for the water. On the banks, coal plants planted, fellow suit, ash. Dust the windsills for lead, dear, run the tap. Tenants tunnel under bridges, sleeping tents, blue tarps, backpacks. Snow melts, plastic bags, bottle caps. They run towards the inland sea, stream the river, float in trees, clog our veins, hold blood captive. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the poisons we leach. How shallow the aura of those who pillage, carve hillsides for gold, wound, scrape the earth, leave. Prairies, wetlands, marshes, clean water. City deer, raccoons, rabbits, chipmunks, squirrels, foxes run sun on rock banks. Coyotes prey on rats, cats in alleys. Red-tailed hawks lunge, plunge, swoop singing evergreen bushes, swallow feathers with wing beats. Talons, claws clung tight to branches, chirp, still here, across the grass. And I'm going to close with a short poem on the question of war. To agree would be to give up life, release the earth, the trees that keep us holding the earth together. Thank you for your time.
Our next reader is Doug Van Gundy.
Thank you, Lise. And thanks to all the poets thus far. I'm just sitting here in awe listening to the wonderful evocations of your places, both the places that you're writing about for the project and the places in your hearts and that you've come from. So thank you. I come from East Central West Virginia in the Allegheny Highlands, sort of right at the edge of the Allegheny Highlands and the Allegheny Plateau. And I'll finish the reading with the poem for the Writing the Land project for Warm Springs Mountain in Virginia, which is on the other side of it's the eastern edge of the Allegheny Highlands. So, but I'll start with a couple of elegies for my part of West Virginia. This first one's called West Virginia versus Extractive Industry. 1, what they took from us. Our land, our lungs, our fathers and our sons, our farms and our fields, our labor, our mountains, our dignity. 2, what they left us. Their garbage, their chain stores and restaurants, their standard of worth, our choked streams, our downcast eyes, our story. This next poem is a mirror poem or a ladder poem. The first 11 lines appear exactly the same, but in the reverse order. So we sort of go down through the layers of this place and sort of then back up, hopefully with a changed perspective. This is called A People's History of Randolph County, West Virginia. Imagine how it used to be. All that remains now are stones and ghosts. You can't look at the old topographical maps and see the places where the miners used to live. Even the names of the settlements are missing. Jeff Scott's, Laurel, Roaring Creek Junction. If you go there today, bushwhack through briars and Joe Pie. You will have to dig into the ground to find anything to prove that people ever even lived here. To prove that people ever even lived here, dig into the ground. To find anything, you'll have to bushwhack through briars and Joe Pie if you go there today. Jeff Scott's, Laurel, Roaring Creek Junction, even the names of the settlements are missing, the places where the miners used to live. Look at the old topographical maps and see. All that remains now are stones and ghosts. You can't imagine how it used to be. This one's called Roaring Creek, and it has an epigraph from the labor poet and folklorist Don West from his poem My South. I love the sad, solemn beauty in your mountains. I returned today to a favorite place, a deep water hole in a mountain creek. The stream in front of me dovetailed perfectly with my memory. Window pane clear, emerald green, braided beneath rhododendron and feathery hemlock. I wish you could go there with me. Wade into your knees, wince at water that remembers last winter's snowfall, handing the heat in your fingers and feet to the stream. Turning all the rocks in its lumpy bed, you wouldn't startle any minnows, nor find a single crawdad or caddisfly larva. The surface hasn't been dimpled by water striders for over 80 years, and the deep green holes that harbored lunker brook trout hold only last year's leaves and quartz pebbles turned orange with iron. Topo maps tell the tale. The headwaters of every stream in the quadrangle rise in old strip mines, fractured earth oozing acid drainage like a biblical curse, promising nothing will ever grow here again. Here, where I learned to swim. Here, where the water tastes as bloody as a punch in the mouth. Why hasn't the ruin occurred to me until now? And why only now does anger rise in my guts like poisoned water? Last year, in August, I had the good fortune to be at the Heinemann Settlement School in Eastern Kentucky with a bunch of wonderful writers, including Jim Minnick, who is in this project, and I believe in this room. But we were flooded out in the great floods that hit Eastern Kentucky last year and Southern West Virginia. So this poem comes from that. It's called The Flooded Town. Forget for a moment what is to come. The reek of diesel, the swollen drywall crumbling back to dust, the liberated spores of mold in full black bloom. And just notice this, an empty town at the exact moment the waters crest, nearly silent and everything still. Places that were backyards and ravines and parking lots and will be again are for the moment backwaters where ducks and wading birds survey their new territory. A heron perches on a state road sign. A pair of mallards huddle on the last dry step of the Baptist church. In the stillness, clouds are breaking up and sunlight is spilling through. This is not the optimistic ending, the silver sentimental lining. No one will be spared their share of sorrow, their little ladleful of loss. Misery has a long reach. But for now, one might be forgiven for seeing them as beautiful, these sunken, unpeopled streets. This one's called Restoration. Put it back with your imagination, the only way that you can. Backfill all of the road cuts, lay down strata a million years at a time, reforest the hillsides with a third as many trees, 4 times as big around, and half again as tall. Peel up all of the pavement, dredge topsoil from river delta, sea bottom, floodplain, and lay it back on its home hillside, carried in your arms like an infant from the car seat, careful not to set its eyelids fluttering. Tear down the dams, grind their concrete back into sand and quicklime, and store it all appropriately somewhere inside the earth. Trap every sparrow, starling, and house wren, and ship them back to Europe to refeather their skies. There is nothing to be done about the Carolina parakeet, the passenger pigeon, the woodland buffalo, all those millions of disappeared animals left as scattered bones, some things being impossible, even in dreams. And I'll finish with a poem for the Writing the Land project. This is, as I mentioned, for Warm Springs Mountain, Virginia. It's called Waiting is a Shade of Green. If these hills are still green, then green must be the most patient shade. Zen green, waiting green, indecisive green. Been there, still there green. The trees seem dabbed along Warm Springs Mountain and down the slope in drops of olive and viridian, emerald, sap, and cadmium green, waiting to oxidize brown or be scraped from the canvas of the Alleghenies, leaving only gray ghosts and damaged ground. Orange is action, and blue is placid, and red is pure passion, but green is take it as it comes, whatever works for you, very laissez-faire, awaiting the rising tide of autumn, and whatever it is that comes next. Thank you very much.
Our next reader is Amy Wright.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was lovely. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Lise, for organizing this. What a beautiful mission to have us all speaking about our relationships to the land. I'm going to read first from the book that introduced me to Lise and this project, which is an anthology that Jim Minnick is in, and perhaps I scanned through the names. I'm not sure if I caught anybody else, but this is an anthology of poets from Virginia. And so my poem that appears in here, one of them, really speaks to my love of insects. And so I was going to read that one. It's called Cherokee Atakula Kula. Because we can keep legends better than treaties, we name Swain and Macon and Rabun County hill cane feeders after first beloved men, pin forewings like hides flown over lost battles, commemorate ancients who uniform the Southern Appalachians and shirk light with their own genus, to honor a people ripped from ridges their wingtips mimic. Now that their dust we dare prick Atakulakula's ears, cut with silver, banded lobes almost to his shoulders, bones scattered far from his estranged son, who knew better than negotiate with pale faces, past shame, the lab floor laced with scales. And I didn't think that I would have both of my poems for the Writing the Land project because I was assigned to the Clinch Mountain Wildlife Area, and I was just able to visit it in mid-October. So I wasn't sure if I would be able to turn around the poem, but I'm going to read the most recent poem second, and I'll start with the first one, Different Seasons. Wildlife. Bowing under a canopy of red spruces, Lily of the Valley need not know her mountain is managed by Virginia's Department of Wildlife Resources. Even those who know Clinch Mountain by stride may miss the fine attunements of a protected area. A tree is a tree to the average human, but one who discerns pines from upland evergreens with a 400-year lifespan recognizes a habitat co-adapted to house flying squirrels, blue-headed vireos, flame azaleas, spruce sawflies, and other species well-suited to short growing seasons in thin, rocky soils. Tulip poplars would have overtopped this boreal forest and toppled in a strong wind if not for those who safeguarded the central Appalachian refuge from rising temps, girdled trunks to let light stream into this rare remnant. I kneel to stroke a pliant spruce cone, a treasury of genes preserved for the future, like knowledge that the spray of white bells growing beside it are said to represent purity, after the virgin goddess Astara. But the flowers don't know that, trembling in the breeze, free to grow wild. And the second one is called Panther Lick Trail. In the rain, in the refugium, I bow over clay cauldrons of paw prints, overspilling as the wetwater stream refills. Does mostly, a lone raccoon minding mealtime wash up. But suppose a different silhouette rivers this bone-set flecked meadow. A predator more warranted to bolt a deer from this tongue-slicked mineral earth. Not us unarmed hikers strowing human scent on the wind, first day of bow season. Bucks have counted the day in their coats as surely as the oaks have marked twilight's thinning. Ghosts of the hunt bend to drink, hides shivering to rouse flies, minute nuisances. None of the blood rush from the chase in the seep to backlight their iron-soaked eyes. None of the big cat namesakes trail signs hint at. Yet, with time or prey enough, recovery of the whole host of life may be inevitable. Such is the reach of 25,477 protected acres. I startled a black bear into a gallop our last walk here. This time we sing notice of our presence, trading lyrics about a hitchhiking folk singer. Knee-high, then hip-side, then overhead, winged sunflowers limn the trail we ascend until we cannot see each other or ahead. Subsumed by a world where rainfall, sunlight, and topsoil matter most, we emerge from the thicket of self-interest. On a grassy bald, my love pauses to absorb the panorama from White Rock Cove to Red Rock Preserve, 360 degrees of siltstone and limestone cliffs, painted plains, locusts and maples turning in their autumn dress. At our feet, scattered gold and white, Asteraceae and Stellaria, different ways to say starlight, he says, and just like that, the heart, cracked as a dry stream bed, refills. This is a story about gardening. I was helping at the Unitarian Universalist Church, and this is a story about the community garden that we were working there. The world's unkissed custodian. Blue-black beetles whip meringue loam only to join it. Become ferns that curl like a struck child when poked. 3-year-old Paige unearths the earth in miniature, a pillbug between finger and thumb like a distant moon. Cooing, she pets it, trowel dropped, all digging checked, to coax its clench loose, woo this hidden life out. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy Wright. That was beautiful. Beautiful insect poems. Our next reader is Candace Curran. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. What an amazing pack of poets. Thank you, Lisa and Liz, and Rescue Poetics. We for all you do to make the books and everything happen, and the festivals. They're really amazing. And I'll be reading 3 poems from Streamlines. And I was honored to have been the poet protector of Annisquam Woods, Essex County, Greenbelt, Gloucester, Mass, land of the Pennacook and Pawtucket. Echolating in Annisquam Woods, under February's domed blue sky, in the silence without bird cry or scurry, in the crisscross of stone walls and rock crops sewing up hillsides, the hide and seek, shriek and groan. Something needs saving, but I can't find it. Where wind in a still life and turn, shake, curled, spent leaves, a shaman's rattle, after a deafening silence preceded by the cry of something caught in the teeth, otherworldly. But where? What animal pricks my neck, and why did I come to these woods alone? When there again high-pitched the scream for help or mocking stalks me, as I search to locate and then all at once find the fallen limb, a tree branch, tangled, struggling, and strangled, the rub against another creating its ghostly whine as I recover slowly, discovering that it is fear that mocks, and fear the animal that steals my breath. On a spur from Trailhead to Langsford Pond, wandering under cold, bright skies, a warmth within, past the bedrock outcrop, glacial erratics, offerings to the imagination, portals to the underworld, heaps and cairns, and hollowed stumps that tell a tale to water's edge. With the glint of sun and flicker of shade, an expanse of water teasing me to its stage, I linger, stock still and dreamy, under white pines and the pond's reflections. Breathe in a peace that has settled, nesting. So at first I don't see them under the overhang of green swag and bracken. The raft of ducks, a wobbling of waterfowl suddenly in focus, a small fleet in the bank's shadows. Their discovery startling heart to flight. I slip back to the path in the snaking walls of stone. Reflections on a vernal pool and Annisquam Woods. Dried, then hydrated. All that sheltered came alive. The wetlands have thawed. Down deep under leaves, fairy shrimp have awakened in the ephemeral pool. Sounding in the woods, peppers, peepers, and tree frogs shout out a spring roundelay. Fly catchers flicker. Songbirds rehearse a remix. The maples red burst. All the egg-laying, dragons and damsels flying, kiss sky and water. At cockcrow, as doves whinny off bursting with sorrow, warblers paint the air in tumbling brook notes and pickup lines, poolside, where show-off jays sing, topsy-turvy from tipsy pines, swaying, swaying, while graveling grackles crack their nuts on tabletops. And clothespin birds twitter from high wires, swing, swing, singing their hearts out, and you and I are a part of this circus, this glee club, pitching hand-me-down tunes, twice and thrice told tales, our own songbook, a la-di-da of new and used lies, and glory, glory. You see how it is in these, the days of smoky skies, heavy wings without a sun, and you not here beside me, how we are angels of our own defeat in a burnt-out woods, animals wanting to share in the spoils like anyone. Are we not warm-blooded under this dark canopy, dim-lit sky capable of waking? Flying up from the rubble, a temporary ruin where love is dowsing, dueling while drowning in these the days of smoke and heavy rains. See how we must fan the coal bed, feed the fire again and again. And the last poem I'm going to read is titled On the Threshold. On the threshold of a lazy dog's early spring, sun and shadow shape-shift, dropping outlines of aircraft on the slopes of our hill town tops, to stutter out later in the hypnic jerk of nap dreams, where our lost animals never owned search for us to carry them. Red light, green light, on the other platform, in some other dimension, or again in the middle of our evening dark murder mysteries. We hear the oncoming, the sounds of low-flying planes alerting, so that we stop, look, take shelter in each other's eyes because it's here. It has landed in our homes, on our screens, arrived in our backyard, how many times removed on the monopoly board of a world's real estate, broadcasting its barbed seeds. Nowhere to be found in sunny summer's swelter, last year's bluets.
Thanks so much, Candace. That was beautiful.